bhajana bhakata seva paramasiddhi premalati karo mula. Madhavati ti bhakti janani jatane palana kori. Krishna basati basati boli parama adare bori. Gora Maharaja Sabastane Koralo Brahmanarange. Se Sabastana Heri Bovami Panayi Bhakata Sange. Mridanga Bhaja Sunite Mana Abasara Sada Jache. Gora Bihita Kirtana Suni Anande Hridaya Nache. Jogala Murti Dekhiya Mora Parama Ananda Hoya. Prasada Seva Korite Hoya Sakala Prapacha Jaya. Jedina Grihe Bhajana Dekhi Grihete Goloka Bhaya. Charana Sedu Dekhiya Ganga Sukana Simana Paya. Tulasi Dekhi Juraya Pana Madhava Toshani Jani. Gora Priya Sakha Sebane Jivana Sarthakamani. Bhakati Vino Krishna Bhajane Anukula Payaja. Prati Divase Parama Sukhe Shikara Karo Yeta. Shuddha Bhakata Charana Renu Bhajana Anukula. Bhakata Seva Paramasiddhi Premalati Karomula. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dust from the lotus feet of pure devotees is conducive to devotional service, while service to the Vaishnavas is itself the supreme perfection and the root of the tender creeper of divine love. I observe with great care the holidays like Ekadasi and Janmashtami, for they are the mother of devotion. As my dwelling place, I choose with the greatest of reverence and love the transcendental abode of Sri Krishna. All those places where my Lord Gosundar traveled for pastimes, I will visit in the company of loving devotees. My mind always begs for the opportunity to hear the music of the mridanga. Upon hearing the kind of kirtan ordained by Lord Gaurachandra, my heart dances in ecstasy. By beholding the deity forms of the divine couple, Sri Sri Radha Krishna, I feel the greatest joy. By honoring the Lord's prasad, I conquer over all worldly illusions. Goloka Vrindavan appears in my home whenever I see the worship and service of Lord Hari going on there. Upon seeing the Ganges, which is a river of nectar emanating from the lotus feet of the Lord, my happiness knows no bounds. The sight of the holy Tulasi tree soothes my soul, for I know she gives pleasure to Lord Krishna. By honoring Sak, a dear favorite of Lord Chaitanya, I consider life worthwhile. Whatever Bhaktivinoda obtains that is conducive for the service to Sri Krishna, he accepts every day with the greatest of joy. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtapayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine. Hare Krishna. Today we are reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamritam, Volume 4, entitled In Every Town and Village Around the World, from 1968 to 1971. It is a biography of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, written by Sattvarup Das Goswami. So we are reading from the chapter entitled London, a Dream Fulfilled. Later that morning, some of the devotees brought Prabhupada several news articles about his London arrival. The daily sketch with its headline, Enter His Divine Grace, Abhay Charan Bhaktivedanta Swami, carried a foot-high photo of Prabhupada playing kartals. The Sun story, Happiness is Hare Krishna, appeared with a photo of Prabhupada and the devotees. And the Daily Mirror showed Saraswati and one of the adult devotees. The Daily Telegraph, however, carried a different kind of article. Hindu temple protests. Conversion of office premises in Bloomsbury into a Hindu temple is being investigated by the Ministry of Public Buildings and Works. The article began. The devotees' neighbors at Bury Place had apparently complained about the renovation that had been going on for the past 2 weeks. The article quoted a Camden Council member. If their planning application is not granted, it will cost them a lot of money. Prabhupada said the devotees should do everything they could to prevent delays or obstacles to their establishing the temple and installing deities of Radha and Krishna. He suggested they go daily into the city, work carefully and persistently with the officials, and secure the authorization. Meanwhile, Shyam Sundar should continue his remodeling work at Bury Place. For Prabhupada, such diplomatic and legal strategy was as spiritual as translating Krishna or singing before his deities. He was serious, heavy, and his disciples sensed this as he looked at them with full concentration, his intelligent gaze penetrating to see if they understood his directions. This heaviness of the Guru was an essential part of their relationship with him. They were young men, inexperienced, and he was sending them on a major assignment that required both transcendental and worldly expertise. Serving as Prabhupada's menial messengers and workers, his disciples imbibed his gravity, and they too became heavy. They too became dedicated servants of their Guru. To bungle an important order because of naivete or carelessness would be a spiritual disqualification. Prabhupada had often told them a Vaishnava is not a retired person who only sleeps and eats and chants Hare Krishna. Rather, a Vaishnava fights for Krishna, as did Arjuna and Hanuman, and as the devotee tries his best, working in full surrender, Krishna supports and protects him. Dawn arrived, and time for Prabhupada's morning walk. The cold September night shrouded the morning in heavy fog. Some of the low-lying grounds were waterlogged this time of year, and even in the higher plots, the long grass would remain wet until mid-morning. This climate, Prabhupada admitted, is not at all suitable for me. But having heard of the beauty of the grounds, he insisted on taking his usual morning walk. Tittenhurst dated back to the 1770, when the estate had been renowned for its many varieties of trees and shrubs, one of the most unusual collections in England. Even now, cypresses, weeping beech, Austin poplars, royal palms, redwoods, varieties of pines, monkey puzzle trees, and orchards of cherry and apple graze the stately grounds. One cypress stood more than 125 feet tall, and the redwoods grew even taller. Bushes and vines grew in dense thickets. Close by the main house were hundreds of rhododendrons, a formal rose garden, and several fountains. The estate had its own lake, stocked with goldfish and perch, and at far end of the property stood a row of greenhouses for grapes and peaches. Designed so as to be abloom in every season, the grounds had been carefully kept for generations, a recent owner having employed more than 20 gardeners. John, however, was deliberately allowing the grass to go uncut. Prabhupada walked out into the morning mist onto the long, wet grass. Dressed almost entirely in black, he wore a Russian hat with earmuffs and black rubber Wellington boots. A black full-length overcoat given him by the devotees in Germany covered his robes and sweater, leaving only glimpses of saffron cloth. As Prabhupada walked, accompanied by several of his disciples, he passed a fountain near the main house and entered a grove. The path narrowed, with vines and bushes close in, and led them into an open meadow, once a well-tended lawn, but now a field of high grass. Bulldozers had excavated an area which, according to rumor, would soon be an helicopter landing field. At the bottom of the sloping meadow, Prabhupada entered an orchard. Many leaves had fallen from the trees, and the sun's first rays now revealed shavings of autumn gold at Prabhupada's feet. He stood under one of the trees, and the diffuse sunlight made the sky beyond the branches glow golden. In my childhood, he said, there were so many names given to me. My maternal uncle called me Nandu, because I appeared the day after Krishna appeared, and there was a great celebration on that day. I was called Nandu because I was born the day after Krishna, and I was also called Govardhan. One of my sisters used to call me Kacha. I've been called so many names. As children, we were all very beautiful. There are always so many names given to them. But all these names, they are all dead and gone. He turned and began to walk again, saying nothing more on the subject. Prabhupada mentioned the British economy, which he said was sinking into the sea because of the pound's devaluation. So many British lords had gained their wealth by exploiting other nations. Now, having exhausted their good karma, they were suffering the results of their sins. They were too poor to maintain their great estates. They used to have 17 men working full-time just on the garden, Prabhupada explained. And now they can't even pay the taxes. So they have to give the whole thing up. And it is falling into the hands of the Shudras. Isana asked Prabhupada, how is it that a person like me, from such a degraded background, can come to Krishna consciousness? Because you are intelligent, Prabhupada replied. I don't understand. Because you are intelligent, Prabhupada repeated. Isana's wife, Vibhavati, asked, what is the meaning of spiritual master? Actually, I am not your spiritual master, Prabhupada replied. That title is simply a formality. You should think of me as your spiritual father, your eternal father. As they walked past the tractor, Kulashekar remarked, the tractor is a very wonderful invention, isn't it? Prabhupada turned to Kulashekar. This tractor is a downfall of the Indian village system. Why is that? It does the work of 10 men. Yes, Prabhupada said. Previously, the young men of the village would be engaged in plowing the field. Then this tractor came along and did the work of all those young men, and they had nothing to do. So they went to the cities to try to find work, and they fell into illusion. Stopping beside a clump of yellowed grass, Prabhupada asked, why is this yellow grass different? No one answered. The other grass is green, he said, but this is yellow. What is the reason? Still, no one answered. This yellow grass is drying up, Prabhupada explained, because the roots are not attached. Therefore it is yellow. Similarly, when we detach ourselves from Krishna, then we will dry up. They walked to a spot where the grass grew almost 6 feet high. Stopping at a path the tractor had cut, Prabhupada smiled. Oh, we can go through there? And he strode ahead with his cane into the head-high jungle of grass and weeds. He walked until he came to a low hill that had been cleared, and he stopped. As he stood there, surrounded by the sea of grass and a few disciples, Kulashekar asked about the song Prabhupada had been singing earlier that morning. The song, Prabhupada said, is about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He would rise and he would go out at this time of morning when the sun has risen but is not yet in the sky. As Prabhupada spoke, the mist was already dissipating and the golden glow in the sky had moved higher above the horizon. Prabhupada raised his hands and swayed from side to side. In this way, he said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would dance in the morning. As they returned by the main house, John Lennon stood gazing out through the glass doors. watching. Prabhupada, walking with a cane, dressed in his black coat and his Wellingtons, looked like the gentleman of the estate, out for his morning walk. Stopping now and then, he would look at certain trees, touching their bark, rubbing their leaves, inspecting them closely. At the beginning of the walk, a devotee had picked a rose and handed it to him, and he still held it in his hand with care. He had walked for an hour. Everywhere the scenery had been beautiful, and everywhere he had instructed his followers in Krishna consciousness. As Prabhupada approached the building where he lived, he met little Saraswati. Taking her hand, he walked along with her to the foot of the stairs, where they stopped. Prabhupada was halfway up the stairs when he turned and saw Saraswati standing in the doorway, watching. He beckoned and called to her, "Come on," and she crawled up the stairs after him. When Saraswati came into Prabhupada's room, he asked her, "So, are you old enough to go to Gurukul?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "Come here. I am going to put a stamp on your forehead, and then we are going to put you in a red mailbox and send you to Gurukul." Saraswati began to cry, "Malati, Malati, I don't want to go," and ran and hid behind her mother. "Come on, Saraswati," Prabhupada coaxed. "Come sit on my lap, and I'll give you some prasadam." She came and sat on Prabhupada's knee. "Now get me the stamps, Purushottam," he teased. "We are going to send her to Gurukul." Saraswati shrieked and ran to Malati. To Srila Prabhupada, Saraswati was a pure spirit soul, but because she was in a small child's body, he did not teach her philosophy. He teased her, gave her prasadam, and treated her with the affection of a grandfather. But through her attachment to him, she would become attached to Krishna. After breakfast, when the sun had warmed the air, Prabhupada opened his windows, sat down at his harmonium, and sang bhajanas. As he sang with closed eyes, his head shaking, he played the harmonium, and Yamuna sat at the bottom of the stairs, crying tears of appreciation. Prabhupada had been singing for a while when he stopped and called for Yamuna. "Do you enjoy my kirtan?" he asked. "Yes," she nodded, "very much." "The prayers of Narottam Das Thakur," he said, "this sound is above the material platform. It is directly from the spiritual platform, and there is no need of understanding the language. It is just like a thunder burst. Everyone can hear the sound of thunder. There is no misunderstanding. Similarly, these songs are above the material platform, and they crack like thunder within your heart. Why don't you come here every day during my chanting?" "That would be wonderful." "Yes," said Prabhupada, "from now on we will record." And every morning after that, Prabhupada sang, and Purushottam and Yamuna would come to his room and record. "What is your favorite bhajan?" Yamuna asked. "What is yours?" Prabhupada returned. "Lord Chaitanya Sikshastakam prayers." "My favorite," said Prabhupada, "is Hari Hari Vipale." He recited the gist of the prayer in English. "O Lord Hari, I have spent my life uselessly. Although I have taken this rare human birth, I have not worshipped Radha and Krishna, and so I have knowingly drunk poison." There is so much depth of meaning in Narottam Das Thakur's prayers. Purushottam says, "Once Prabhupada was sitting alone in his room. I walked by and I heard him singing a prayer I'd never heard before. And I went in. Of course, everyone knows he sings. He can sing very beautifully, very gladly inspired. But I've never heard him sing as beautifully as he did that one time. I'd heard him sing many times in many temples, but I'd never heard him sing as beautifully as this. I felt very honored to hear it, very privileged. It was beautiful. When he was done, he just got up and said, "Let's go now." End of quote. Prabhupada also chanted one chapter of Bhagavad Gita daily for 18 days. Anywhere Bhagavad Gita is chanted, he said, that place becomes a tirtha, a holy place. Purushottam reported to the devotees in the United States these activities of Srila Prabhupada. Except from his letter, he is singing prayers a lot, and much of it is being recorded. I must admit that the tapes of songs and prayers he is making now are the best ones I have ever heard. Wait until you hear them when we get back. As the Bhagavatam says, drink deep this nectar, O man of piety, and you shall be taken from this mortal frame. End of quote. The women cooking for Prabhupada were serving him American desserts, apple pie, donuts, glazed cookies. Prabhupada would smile, but he would only nibble at his desserts. One afternoon he said, "These sweets are very nice, but no one has made me sandesh." None of the devotees knew how to make Bengali sweets. So Prabhupada took them into the kitchen and taught them to make sandesh. Although they had watched carefully, their first attempts produced sandesh that was dry and grainy. But Prabhupada accepted it, preferring the sandesh which Krishna himself used to eat to the Western confections. For the devotees at Tittenhurst, to have Prabhupada living among them was again to witness Krishna's pure devotee as he engaged constantly in ecstatic devotional service with his body, mind, and words. They could see how Prabhupada was speaking and acting in Krishna consciousness at every moment, and his presence confirmed that the most exalted platform of pure devotional service was a reality. His disciple felt bliss and renewed determination just being with him. Prabhupada's hosts, John and Yoko, also had the valuable opportunity to be near Prabhupada, although they chose to keep apart. Remaining together in their own world, they mingled but rarely with the devotees. Prabhupada's men continued to work under John's managers, and John was content to let the Swami as in his entourage stay. When the head gardener asked John how to treat the devotees, he said, "Let them please themselves." On hearing of certain activities in the main house, Prabhupada commented about the bad influence women sometimes have on men, but he kept out of John and Yoko's affairs. He had his own affairs in Krishna consciousness. Having been whisked from the airport to Tittenhurst, Prabhupada had seen little of London, and one day he asked Shamsundar to take him on a tour of the city. Prabhupada had grown up in British Calcutta, hearing London praised as the seat of Britain's world empire. So when he saw how small many of London's historic landmarks were, he was particularly surprised. At Buckingham Palace, he remarked, "We have many houses in Calcutta bigger than this." The Thames celebrated in the writings of British authors he has studied in college, was a disappointment also. It's a canal, he said. It's only a canal. In my mind, I thought it was bigger than the Ganges. But the most interesting site was the building at 7 Bury Place. City officials had recently granted the devotees permission to occupy the temple. That part of the battle was won. Now, Shyam Sundar and his few helpers had to finish the remodeling. On seeing the temple's location near the British Museum and Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, Srila Prabhupada became even more anxious that Shyam Sundar fix an opening date as soon as possible. Up to which time again? 9. No, it's almost 9. Because that is now next. So we shall stop here this reading. As described in this biography, Srila Prabhupada had gone to London from America. America was his first preaching ground, and then London was the next one. He had already sent some of his disciples, like Gurudas, Yamuna, Malati, and Mukunda. And then he was expecting his disciples to find a place to establish a temple in London. As mentioned here, London was as the capital of the British Empire. It would be very appropriate to have a Hare Krishna center in London and disseminate the Krishna consciousness movement from London and from there throughout the world. It's a very prestigious place. And as described in what we have read, Srila Prabhupada was invited by John Lennon and Yoko Ono, John Lennon is a member of the Beatles, world famous musicians, and they had already made friendship with the disciples in London, and John Lennon invited Srila Prabhupada to Tittenhurst. Tittenhurst is a beautiful garden outside the capital city, and we have seen how Prabhupada had his morning walk there, and how he appreciated the beauty of the garden, and also giving some instructions to his disciples, just like he gave instruction how this grass is yellow, other grass is green, so how is it yellow? Nobody could answer among the disciples. They were thinking, I don't know, what can I say? So they could not answer Prabhupada. But Prabhupada had the right idea. He said, yes, it is yellow because it is disconnected with the ground. So it is being heated up and burnt from the sunlight. Therefore it has, instead of green, it has become yellow. And Prabhupada added a spiritual instruction. If we become disconnected from Krishna, then we become dried up also. That will be our life, dried life without Krishna. So we can appreciate that. Whenever Prabhupada used to go on morning walk, he used to speak to his disciple in a very informal manner. Once in Vrindavan, I remember a little bit, in Vrindavan, Prabhupada was also going on a morning walk outside the temple, and they came under a tree. And below the tree, there was stool. Stool was below the branch of the tree on the ground. So Prabhupada asked his disciples, "What is this?" Our disciples really tell what to say. Prabhupada, everybody, Prabhupada, this stool, Prabhupada, this stool. And Prabhupada said, "But what is the meaning of this? What is the meaning?" And Prabhupada, nobody could understand and nobody could answer. So Prabhupada said, "This bird here is attached to this particular branch." Attachment. And because he's attached to this branch, every day he'll come there and pass stool on the same place, it will accumulate there on the ground. That was the answer given by Prabhupada. How Krishna consciousness can be understood by simply observing nature. But that was the quality of Srila Prabhupada. And everybody who was with Srila Prabhupada in his morning walks, he always could absorb and remember throughout life whatever instruction Prabhupada was giving. Prabhupada is giving lecture in the temple, but he is also giving this type of instruction at the time of morning walk, which for some of the disciples was more valuable and more, catching, more extraordinary, more wonderful than what they may hear from the temple. So these are some of the ideas from this reading. Any other questions, comments?
There was a mention of songs which Prabhupada used to sing, and it was recorded as well. So, which are those songs?
No, it is not mentioned. What are the songs that Prabhupada sang at that time? But the one is mentioned that is sung by Narottam Das Thakur, that Hari Hari Vipale. So Prabhupada was singing that song. Other songs also, but the recording may be still available. They can be played here in this temple. That will be very good. Can try to get these songs recorded. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. We hear that Prabhupada is addressing one of the Matajis that he's not the spiritual master but the spiritual father. So how are we to understand?
I didn't follow. Yes. Prabhupada was very kind to his disciples. They are young disciples and they have no definite idea about what is a spiritual master. They met Srila Prabhupada in America, they became his disciples, but they don't have a complete understanding of the relationship between the spiritual master and the disciple. The spiritual master, guru. Guru means very heavy. So generally, a spiritual master is very heavy when dealing with a disciple. But Prabhupada did not want to show this type of heaviness. He wanted to keep his disciples in a very, very kind, very friendly manner, even though he is a teacher, no doubt. He is teaching them Krishna consciousness. At the same time, he is keeping a relationship of a great friendliness. And that is why he said, "I am not your spiritual master, I am your spiritual father." The father is very kind to the child. Even if the father sometimes may show stick, but he will not use the stick. He'll just show the stick. So, spiritual father, That was a relationship. Very kind, and that's why they were very much attached to Srila Prabhupada, and that is why they were very determined in their service to Prabhupada because of this loving relationship. That was very unique. So how Prabhupada was a perfect spiritual master, not simply exercising his might, his intellect, but as a very kind father.
Prabhuji,
Any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. And all the life of Prabhupada ji is dedicated for propagation of Krishna consciousness. And he told, he gave an example of Soviets. They did come to India, but they sent their books continuously so that many people became their followers. So, in which way, without going from our country to propagate in other countries Krishna consciousness?
What is the question?
That is, in relation to Prabhupada's reference towards Soviets propagation through books to India, and in such a manner they did come, but many followers became in later on days. So, without going to other countries, how can we propagate this Krishna consciousness in such a manner in relation like that?
But Srila Prabhupada's books went to Soviet Union. You don't know that? Now you are telling that Prabhupada's books are not available there, but gradually Prabhupada's books entered through the border, and by some very expert disciple, they gradually took Srila Prabhupada's books into the communist Russia, and they were distributing the books there. And gradually these books became very well known, and they became in this way. The disciples gradually became, because of reading the books, they became disciples.
And regarding this cinematography, and Prabhupada ji told, in many ways it is possible to make Krishna consciousness reachable to remote places also. This cinematography can be used.
What is the question?
That is, regarding cinematography, that is cinemas. Cinemas, that is
cinema movies.
So it will be a very short time. Many people up to village level also they could reach.
Your question, how to use
not,
cinema, films, movies
why not
for propagating Krishna consciousness?
Yeah. Why?
Certainly, many movies were done. Like Yadupara Prabhu, he did 6 movies on the Hare Krishna movement. And I remember here, while preaching outside, going on traveling parties, and we were always having these movies and showing in the villages. So when the villagers see, oh, movie is coming, so everybody, or the whole village is coming. Then we have kirtan, and lecture and other book distribution. So the movie at that time was very, we used this as an instrument for preaching Krishna consciousness everywhere. Certainly it was used.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.